Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome back to In the Trenches with Dr. Tammy. This morning, I'm going to do something just a little bit differently than I've been doing it in the past. Today's episode is actually going to be called one of our very first Fix It Fridays. We hope to have many more of those as we continue to work to help others and to empower others. I would like to remind you that when I first started the podcast and introduced myself to you, I shared with you that I wanted to uplift and empower women and everybody. So today's episode is near and dear to my heart. I want to say to you that I'm concerned. I am very much concerned about some of the things that I'm seeing and hearing on social media with regard to men in general. We always, ladies, talk about what it is that we need in our lives. I also talk about it a great deal on the podcast. But I would like to take the time today to talk a little bit about some of what I'm hearing, why it concerns me, and hopefully, move us in a positive direction. One of the things that we need to always remember is that when it comes to relationships, whether it's professional, personal, with your family, whatever it is, we have to move beyond calling each other names. So today I'm going to try to use my black girl magic to help us to move past some of these things that we're saying about each other that could be perceived as negative and hopefully get us to start working more towards what we have in common, what we consider to be working for us. And if it's not working for us, find a way to share that information with each other without being negative or just flat out hurting each other's feelings. So, ladies, before I get started, some of you may or may not like what I'm about to say. That's okay. We don't always agree, but we can definitely agree to disagree. So I want to start with something that I read and heard about over the last week or so and have been hearing something similar for weeks, if not months now. When I'm on these sites or when people reach out to me, they do a number of things. They come to me for relationship advice. They come and they share things with me, such as what they anticipate and hope for in a partner, which we've also discussed on the previous podcast. We talked about things like wife material, husband material. But keep in mind, as I say every single time, when we do these things, we talk about them, we need to do them in a manner in which they're positive. We don't always need to focus on the negative. And if it is perceived as a negative, let's see how we can spin it in a positive direction that focuses on just what it is that we actually need without putting somebody down. So let's dive right into this. I have heard the term low value when it comes to describing our men, and not just all men in some instances, but in particular, people are referring to African American men, black men, men of color, whatever you want to call them, or however you want to refer to them as low value. Now, while I'm not just going to focus on that demographic, I am going to focus on the use of that term when it describes men and men that we would like to date. So there was a discussion about what women like in men. So the women were describing the men as low value if they could not provide for them in a way that their current lifestyle affords. For example, if I am driving a Lexus or I am driving any other high end vehicle, then I expect, and this is just a hypothetical, this is not me, then I am expecting this man to do the same. If I am eating at high end restaurants on a regular, I'm expecting for this man to also, when he's courting me, to frequent those restaurants and be able to afford that out of his own pocket. I expect for a said man to also live in the same type of neighborhood in which I live. Again, this is not Dr. Reginelli saying it, Dr. Tammy, that is. I am saying to you, this is what I'm hearing ladies say. Okay? So we're hearing the standard, is what it's being called, of the ladies saying, I am up here. I am all the way up here because of what I drive, because of where I live, because of the types of flights that I actually take. And saying to the man that if you cannot provide those things for me with regularity, then you, sir, are not it for me. Now, while I can say that I can see the perspective, or I can see that particular person or persons' point of view, I will say that many of us, many of the ladies don't feel 100% the exact same way as that has been described. Particularly when we say in the same statement of describing what we want, we then say that a low value man cannot provide those things for us, which infers, it alludes to that if a man cannot do any of those things for you, which are financial or materialistic, then he himself is considered low value. I must say that I am not in favor of that terminology at all, because we are not looking at the man as a whole. We're looking at his bank account, what he drives, where he lives, as if that is the only thing that matters when a man is approaching us. Let me be clear. Now, I've said it on several of the podcasts. Dr. Tammy, she is not making finances or material things the top of the list when it comes to the man who wants to date me. Let me share with you why. Character is so much more important. You can have all those things on that list of things that have been asked for or considered a standard by certain ladies and still be a not so great person. Not going to call any names because that would be not great. We don't want to put people down. However, if your character isn't where it needs to be, then you may not be a great person. I certainly don't want to date anyone who doesn't prefer just me, so can be loyal to me, who isn't trustworthy, who isn't honest, who doesn't know how to communicate, who isn't supportive of my needs, who cannot provide for me the things that I need. So let's be clear, when I say provide, I'm not talking finances. I'm not asking him to buy me a house, a car, none of those things. When I say provision, I am saying that I need the person who is dating me to provide for me in the ways in which I need. And a friend of mine defined this as providing support or giving support in the areas in which I lack. So for me, no, I don't need you to buy me a house. But you know, I hate taking out trash on Wednesday nights. Please come over here and take out these trash. And while You may see that as a small thing. For me, that's a huge thing, because if I'm not taking out the trash, then I'm able to focus on something else that I need to be doing, such as finishing the book edits. You know, I need someone who can actually encourage me, who will tell me not to give up. Keep pushing. You've got this. When it comes to this podcast, this is one of those things where my person would need to be able to be there and say, hey, you got this. You're good. Keep pushing forward. That's free. Doesn't cost a thing. But what are we saying to our men? We're saying you're low value because you can't give me material things. Now, if he so decides to give me something that is within his purview or whatever he has access to, I am going to be grateful for that, because we have to remember that some of us ladies, if we actually described ourselves or were described by other people, that same term could be used for them. Now, ladies, I'm about to make you mad. Forgive me. Think about it this way. There are men out here who are just like women who have been single parents, right? We as women say, I'm behind the curve because I was a single parent all the time. I didn't have help from from the fathers of the children or from the father of my children. Doesn't matter how many, but we use that as a rationale for saying, I'm in my 40s just getting started, or I'm in my 50s just getting started. So I'm behind the curve because of this. However, not once am I hearing the masses say that we have men out here who have also been single fathers, who in turn would also be behind the curve as we as women have described ourselves. We're not looking at that, but we're lumping every man into the same pot when we use those terms, low value. Don't do that, people. Don't do that. Just as women have had experiences that have pushed them a little bit behind the curve, so have some of our men. I encourage you, no, actually, I challenge you to look past the finances, the location of his home, what he drives. I challenge you to look at his character, to look at his heart, look at what he does every day. Is he working hard? Is he taking care of his family? Because believe you me, if he has been a single father, just like you have been a single mother in many instances, he is playing catch up, just like we have done. I remember being in my 40s trying to make it happen, trying to figure out how Dr. Tammy was actually going to get to retirement, because I couldn't figure out where or how the money was going to come in to actually retire one day and still be able to enjoy life beyond retirement. I thought at one point I would be working 75 or 80 years old if the Lord was willing that I lived that long. We have to stop this, ladies. We have to stop this and apply the same reasoning and rationale to our men when we're choosing a mate that we would like for them to use when they're choosing us. Now, make no mistake about it, I am not saying to any man or any woman to date or marry someone who clearly hasn't shown you that they have any goals, or they don't want to support you, or they refuse to work when they are capable of working. And what I mean by capable of working is they are of sound mind and body, can work, but refuse to do so. So that's a totally different ball game. But a man or a woman who has character, who wants to work, who has a vision, who is working to move forward, who's trying to reach goals and shows up for you consistently every single day. Honey, let me just tell you, that's who I want. That's who I want. If you've listened to my previous podcast, then you know that I had a gentleman in my life who had it all. He was checking it off all the boxes on the paper. Anything that said woman would say was a standard for him to be outside of the box of what folks are calling low value, he would have been right there at the top of that. However, the character of the man didn't match what people are referring to as high value. We must stop putting each other in a box. We need to stop using terms such as low value or high value when it solely appears to refer to material things. That can't be who we are. It cannot be who we are. We must look at a person as a whole. Get to know them first. Find out why it is that they are where they are. Because let me tell you, I'd much rather have a man in my life with a vision, who was working towards that vision and doing it every single day. His character supports who he is. He has a strong relationship with his children. Because I too have children. And if we are going to date and move into a committed relationship, one that possibly leads to marriage, I need a man in my life who knows how to love his children, because I also want him to not only love me, but to love mine. I need a man who knows the Lord. Y'all have heard me say this before. He can have all the money and anything else that glitters in society, but if he is not knowing the word and knowing how to use that when it comes to me, our children, what we're trying to build, where are we going? So again, let's look at the person as a whole. Let's look at the heart, the character of the man. And no, before you come fussing at me, I am not telling you to do what TLC said. And yes, I'm making light of it at this moment. I'm not saying choose a scrub. I'm sorry, men. That does not apply to you, but that is for the ladies, because I'm pretty sure in their head, that's the song that they're hearing as I speak, because they may have tuned me out by now. But let's reel them back in. Look at the man as a whole. Stop using words such as low value when it comes to our men. Just like us, they deserve so much better, so much more than that. And that's what I'm going to do. I challenge you to do the same on this Fix It Friday. Now, once you've gotten over being a little bit upset with Dr. Tammy, make sure you tune in again next week as we move back to our regular topics and continue to uplift, empower, and spread love. And I hope that today, that despite the fact that I gave you a little bit of a lecture, teeny tiny little bit, that you remember why we're here. We are here to be positive, uplift, and empower each other. As I say almost every week, let love win. And as always, much love.